Hi, I'm a former higher ed CMO, and I have a confession to make. The conversation that you're about to listen to made me actually start to miss being a chief marketing officer. I am very happy now in my life as a consultant, but you're going to hear in this conversation Joseph Brennan, who's the VP for Communications and Marketing at Montclair State University, talk about counseling presidents. And that was one of my favorite parts of being a CMO or a CCO. Joe is a legend. He's counseled 13 presidents, navigated major crises from international social media incidents to nationally publicized controversies, and directed high profile statewide campaigns to influence higher education policy in 2 states. Joe's mission is simple: help leaders create workspaces where talented people thrive, not just survive. He has authored nearly 20 articles, been elected to the PRSA College of Fellows, and won national awards for Public Relations Campaign of the Year and Best Website Overhaul. And I really know, not just hope, that you're going to love this conversation. You're listening to Confessions of a Higher Ed CMO, the podcast where marketing minds in higher ed come to pull back the curtain, spill a little tea, and talk honestly about what it takes to market in this industry. I'm Jaime Hunt, the founder of Solve Higher Ed, author of Heart Over Hype, and a former campus CMO who spent more than 2 decades navigating the weird, wonderful world of higher education marketing. This show is for the strategists, the storytellers, the change agents, and anyone who has ever tried to get Faculty Senate on board with a rebrand. Here we get candid about the challenges and share the ideas that are shaping the future of our field. Sound like your kind of conversation? Then let's get into it. Hi, Joe. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Jaime. I'm really glad to be here.
I'm so thrilled to be talking with you. There's just this convergence of things that led us to meet each other a couple of weeks ago. And I realized, wait, this is the Joe Brennan. I'm on PRSA, Counselors to Higher Ed's Executive Council. And we had just gotten an article from a Joe Brennan called What It Really Takes to Counsel a President in 2025. Coincidentally, we met and I was like, oh, wait a second. He's the guy that wrote that wonderful piece. So it's so great to when the worlds kind of align us all together.
Thanks for your kind words. You know, I picked up a copy of your book. I love your book about marketing with heart instead of hype. And I kept thinking, Jaime Hunt. I know Jaime Hunt from somewhere. Where do I know Jaime Hunt from? So good to reconnect, my friend.
Your piece, What It Really Takes to Counsel a President in 2025, every part of it, I was like, yes. And I love, you talk in this piece about how this role has evolved over your 33 years in higher ed. I know it's evolved in the 21 years I've been in it, but I imagine it's like night and day. I bet you wouldn't even recognize it from 33 years ago. But if you had to sum up what that change is, what's the biggest shift that you've seen?
I think the role of the chief communications officer in higher ed has really moved from tactician, kind of cranking out material that, makes us look good, to a contributor to business strategy and results by fostering positive, healthy, trusting relationships with all stakeholders inside and outside. In a sentence, it's gotten more complex. It's gotten tied to business results much more. And the pace has picked up incredibly over the 3+ decades that I've been in.
Realizing what I'm about to say, I was doing my college search 33 years ago, and it was like a print view book is what you got in the mail.
That's right.
You maybe got a postcard, maybe. I don't really even remember postcards. There was no websites. There was no social media. It was phone calls from admissions counselors and view books. And now we have all of these myriad ways to communicate with a student. And you've lived through that whole shift.
Yeah, it's kind of astonishing and stunning. So from the time I started, it was about a press release, a view book, a catalog, print material, often postal mailed. When fax machines came along, that was a really cool innovation. Saved us the trouble of licking a stamp, right? So we have to be equally adept now at not just print management and earned media coverage, but paid advertising, social media, owned media, the whole shebang. And along with the digital revolution, of course, the pace quickened quite a bit. So things are coming at us faster. Our audiences expect quicker answers, deeper transparency. And what does that mean for us who are in these roles? Um, I think it really is calling us to step back from tactics, which change very quickly, to what are we doing? Why are we doing it? Who are we reaching? And what's the broad strategy that we're doing here? We need to shift from a focus on producing things to creating strategies that let the institution achieve its goals. The other thing that happened, Jamie, is I think the marketplace became hyper competitive. Hyper competitive. Um, there were enough students to sort of match the capacity that was built in American higher ed after World War II, the boomers and then their children. But the generations that have followed haven't had as many children. So we have fewer people interested in going to college, but we have exactly the same or, roughly the same capacity. So you're seeing the big shakeout with smaller, weaker, less differentiated institutions merging or outright closing. You're seeing that consolidation where a few regional players begin to gobble up more and more of the market share. Um, it's hyper, hyper, hyper competitive. And what's the answer to the hyper competition? I think it lies with us more than anything because we're the storytellers and it's our job to authentically portray what our institutions really are. This is an industry where it's all shades of gray to people that are just one or two steps away from us. We know that every institution has a really distinct personality and culture and way of doing things and what the vibe is like. I think we have to bring that to life for people so they can choose us, whether to work here or to attend school here. We have to differentiate in a very authentic way. And that doesn't essentially really mean having expertise in managing tactics like social or websites. Those are necessary. But to truly differentiate, it's about creating narratives that are compelling, differentiated, and deeply human, which is something that you've called us to do in your book. We have to connect with people on a heart level. We have to show and demonstrate the warmth, the caring, the compassion that, what we do is changing lives in a way that really resonates on a deeply, deeply human level.
So many people who go into higher ed are former journalists, have this like journalism type background of storytelling. That's what good marketing is truly storytelling. Having folks understanding the needs and perspectives of our audiences to tell a story that resonates with them and tells them how their life will be better if they go to our university or, donate money to our university, come back for an alumni event, all of that kind of thing. And I've been really privileged in my career to be often the person that's sort of following that shift. So like they've had someone who's been much more of that like press release writer, focused primarily only on earned media, and to come in and be more of an advisor to the president. And I'd love to hear your thought on what separates that mentality from being a true trusted advisor to the president.
I think we have to start by owning the fact that it's incumbent on us to use our special gifts and our unique perch in the institution to support the senior leaders whose job it is to ensure that the mission can continue and does continue. That goes way beyond tell me what you want it to say, boss, and I'll make it sound great and send it out promptly. It starts with recognizing where we stand and that in that unique perch. We're professionals that work from a body of knowledge that's informed by research. We're psychologists. If you're good at this, you really understand what makes people tick, how things will land with them, the emotional responses that are likely to happen. We're also business people. We know how the university works. We understand it as an enterprise, which not everybody does, right? I like to say we're race car drivers because we can go really fast.
Yeah.
And we're deep sea divers. By that, I mean, we know how to go below the surface to catch what other people miss. We can spot patterns, right? We can sniff out emotions. We can sense maybe what isn't quite as apparent because it's below the surface. So, with that set of gifts and our enterprise wide view, it's incumbent on us to give advice. And if we don't bring that unique perspective, which very few other, maybe no other function in the around the leadership table has, then we're not serving our president as well as we should be. There's a lot of other people, Jamie, that want to get the president's ear and advise. So think legal counsel, for one, the chief of staff, the student life person, the provost. And they all bring unique and valuable perspectives, but not necessarily the perspectives we bring. My development VP colleague is really going to be thinking about what does this mean for alumni and donors.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking, what does this mean for everybody, from students to employees to neighbors to the press to peers, right? Competitors, creditors, that enterprise wide view makes this an obligation, which means we have to learn how to do it and do it well.
It's really a broad perspective. And when you think about the audiences that we serve, the CMO or the CCO serves all of them, right?
Yeah, they've all got a piece of the elephant. We can see the
Yes.
whole elephant, right? And in fact, we get that because we have to be 4 miles wide and an inch deep in order to do the work. We have to understand what each element of the university system does, how it adds value, how it interacts, what its unique dynamics are, where it comes into conflict with other parts of the system. Uh, in fact, I would go out on a limb here, Jamie, and let me try this one out on you.
Okay.
A really seasoned CMO, CCO could pinch hit for any other VP role for a week.
Ooh. I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
I think the only one that I wouldn't feel super comfortable with would be general counsel.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
what they
Exactly.
handle
Yeah.
might end
Yeah.
us up in court if I were
I'll
taking
admit
care.
there's a lot of specialized knowledge, and not to
Yeah.
diminish what my colleagues do, because they're all experts with decades of experience. But we know enough that we could probably sit in that chair and keep it from going south
Yeah.
for a week, right? Because if we don't know that, we can't be effective at our role. So we're in this unique position. Our industry is in a very challenging place with hyper competition, low growth potential, undifferentiation, economic pressure, demographic pressure, political and ideological pressure. Um, we don't have the luxury of sitting on the sidelines and pretending that we're the telegram office and just tell me what it needs to say. I'll get it done.
I really loved in your article, you had this really practical framework for giving counsel briefly, like in 2 to 3 minutes. Here's how you can give counsel. And I'm curious, can you explain for the listeners what that recommendation is? And then why do you think having it be brief and clear is so important in high stakes moments?
Yeah, let me start with what the framework is. I think there's 5 steps to counseling a busy, stressed senior executive. The first one is size up the situation. What is happening? What's at stake? And that can be money, people, values are at stake here. What we know and what we don't know. Don't spend a lot of time. You've already done the work. Remember, you're a writer. You know how to gather, evaluate, organize, and present information. So frame the situation. Then present your thinking in a way that shows that you've done your homework, that you see the whole picture. You can look at it from the point of view of the executive. So you don't come in and say, well, if we do this thing, the headlines are going to be this, or the socials are going to blow up in this way. You frame it instead at an institutional level. What are the risks and opportunities for the institution? You give your executive choice. It is their responsibility and duty to decide how much risk to take on. So you present, here is an option. This is what I see as the benefit of what would happen if you do that option. These are the risks. Here is another option. Potential benefit, potential risk. And then maybe you've got 3 options. I wouldn't give them more than that, but I always say you should also present the option of doing nothing and seeing if time will heal whatever it is. In life, many things actually don't get improved from an intervention. Medical doctors call that watchful waiting. Can we just step back for a minute and see if the body can heal this? And sometimes that is your best option, but I think it should always be considered in relationship to the other ones. Why? Executives have an action bias.
Mm.
They don't want to
Mhm.
spend a lot of time pondering and debating. They like to be where the action is. And sometimes you need to get them to say, what happens if you just pause? Right. So you've laid out your options, and one always includes do nothing, and you have to do your risk benefit on that. And then you end with acknowledging that it is their decision. You're not
Mhm.
pressuring them. You are setting things up to help them make the decision from an informed standpoint. So I usually say something like, I recognize that this is your call, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. And then I stop talking.
Mm.
I think that's important. You have to create space for people to think.
I think about when Dave and I got married, we had a premarital counseling session, and she would leave 7 seconds of silence after saying something to kind of give us time to process or maybe jump in with more. But she always did these very thoughtful pauses after asking a question or after uncovering something. And I think that's super important. If we just keep jabbering on, they can't process what you've just said to them. And I'm really curious because I do hear from some people who struggle with counseling their president, and who say, my president doesn't want my counsel. My president doesn't want to hear what I have to say. My president sees me as someone who just does what he or she tells me to do. And first of all, I think that's tragic. Like, I think that's such a mistake of leadership and an example of someone who's not making good choices. But what would you say to that person? Would you give them the same advice? How would you change that advice for someone in that situation?
The first thing I'd say is that's not uncommon. Um, People that attain high executive roles are there for a reason. They're very bright. They've been very successful. They have tremendous knowledge. Don't let that throw you. You also bring something that is, quite frankly, of value to them, even if they don't know to ask you for it. So I would say first, cultivate executive presence. So executive presence literally starts with body language. Sit or stand up tall. Look
Mhm.
people in the eye. Speak with calm authority. Use simple, direct sentences. Don't meander. Don't let your language undermine you, like, well, I think, or maybe, or, this is just my opinion. Don't undercut yourself. Put it out there. We should do this. This is an option. Here's the potential benefit. These are the risks. We could also do this other thing, option, benefit, risk, right? And if someone interrupts when you're trying to do that, and because you've left the pause that you talked about, the 7-second pause, let the person think, someone else is going to try to capitalize on that. Use your executive presence to turn to that person and politely but firmly say, I'm waiting for the president to ask me a question, right? Just claim your space, right? Don't assume it'll be granted to you. you will almost always be identified as the telegram office because let's face it, most of the leaders in our industry have come up through the academic ranks, and many of them have not really had the opportunity to work with high powered strategic communication leaders. They've been more used to working with people who are good at execution. Think about a dean who becomes a president, right? They may have had a communicator in their college whose job was to put out the newsletter, find some stories about faculty doing amazing things in the classroom or the lab, write them up, send them out. So they just may not have had the experience. And don't let it throw you because you will get your seat at the table when you demonstrate that what you bring is valuable. And that's in a crisis or significant issue. Once you help that leader solve her problem successfully, savvy leaders are going to be like, who can help me here?
Yeah.
Um, so jump in, demonstrate value. Um, don't wait to be invited to the dance. Like you're in sixth grade and you're standing at the back wall of the gym, just hoping someone's going to ask you to dance. Go put yourself out there.
I love this advice. There have been times in my career where I wish that I had you to give me that advice earlier in my career. And I think you make a great point about like crisis or an issue or a problem situation can be a great opportunity for you to showcase the value that you bring. Because I'm when there's a crisis. And even something like COVID, it leans so heavily on comms. And comms had their finger on the pulse of what was being said in social. I was reading all the news articles, reading all the comments on all the news articles, talking with my peers, talking with other institutions. And it really became essential to have me in basically every conversation that was happening to provide that perspective. And I left one institution for another during COVID. And I think that that experience of how I just hit the ground running with exactly what you're saying, that executive presence, bringing that knowledge and expertise that I had from paying attention to the audience for months and months, I was able to show value in my role really, really quickly. And I know I don't want you to manufacture, like, don't go be an arsonist in order to create a crisis on your campus. I think in
Yeah.
2025, you're probably not far
Yeah.
off from one. But
Remember the
when there,
Hippocratic Oath, do no harm.
right, right. But if there is a situation like that, and you have historically sort of held back or waited for someone to come to you, use that as your opportunity to step forward and provide that value. And honestly, if you are getting pushed down or pushed back or pushed away, and there's no change in that, it might not be the best place for you. You have value, and if nobody wants to hear that, find someone who does.
I would add that so often in our business, we are the people who are working behind the curtain to make others look good. And we enjoy that. We're the, you go to a Broadway show, there's 15, 20 people on stage, and there's like 300 working behind the scenes in the front office, in the wings, in the costume shop, the set shop that make the show possible. So that's okay. But recognize that there's going to be a moment when you have to step out in front of that curtain, and it will be uncomfortable. It will be uncomfortable for a lot of reasons. One, there'll be a lot at stake, and surprise, execs are human and they feel anxiety just like the rest of us. There will be others around you that want to take advantage of that moment to gain influence or solidify influence. That may look like others in the executive suite, the general counsel, the chief of staff, some other VPs. Don't be intimidated. Also, remember this: executive presence is something that we're not born with. We learn it. And you could work with a leadership coach who can specifically help you develop the ability to be present and hold your ground in a calm but authoritative manner. I encourage your listeners, especially folks who are on their way up, make that part of your intentional leadership growth. And remember that you don't have to do it on your own. There are executive leadership coaches that specialize, quite frankly, in working with higher ed rising leaders.
Southeast Missouri State University needed to launch more targeted campaigns faster, yet they were bogged down by manual campaign builds, slow approvals, and vendor overload. With Element 451, they eliminated 5 vendor tools and gained marketing superpowers in one platform. They saw a 13% increase in applications, processed applications within 2 days, and achieved 30 to 35% email open rates. The impact was personalized, automated campaigns running at scale without the drag. Ready to churn your next campaign around in hours, not weeks? Try an agent today at element451.com/agents. I tell people a lot that if you are a rising leader, it's not just about the knowledge that you have about the industry and the work. It's how you show up. It's how you lead. It's how your mindset is focused. If you want to be a CMO or a CCO, to your earlier point, you need to understand the business of higher education. You need to understand the funding model of your institution. You need to understand how, the full funnel. You need to understand the student grievance process. I mean, you need to really get the institution inside and out. And you have to be able to present in a way that is non-threatening, is clear, is poised, is confident. You're right. I think a coach is a fantastic idea.
It's the what. How does this place work? How does communication fit in? How do we get results? And it's the how. How do I show up? What are my interpersonal behaviors in regard to my boss, my peers, my team? And then how can I foster health in the system? So, how can I foster the functioning of my team in a healthy way? How can I foster the functioning of the team I'm a member of in a healthy way? Those 3 key factors are really the basis for leader success: getting business results, bringing the right leadership behavior to the moment, and fostering the healthy interactions with and among their team and their peers. Those are all skills that you can learn. But I want to come back to this notion of remaining calm and grounded in the middle of the storm, and how that, the importance of that. And I was wondering actually if you'd be willing to share with our listeners how you find your center and stay grounded when everybody else is losing their stuff.
That's a great question. I'm really well known by my colleagues at the institutions I've been at as being the calmest person in the room in a crisis. Many people have said, like, you just have this calming presence. I don't know what it is. And I think for me, it's when I'm in these like high pressure situations, and the stakes are really, really high. It's almost like a switch flips. And in crisis, in issues, in challenges, there really is a formula to how you approach solving those problems. And it's very similar to the formula that you've shared for giving high stakes advice, but you just kind of fall into this mode of assessing the situation, quickly gauging, what are the possible outcomes of different actions. If we do this, this could happen. And you just fall into this almost muscle memory of being able to solve this problem. And that for me is what settles calmness. I also, if I have to go into a difficult conversation, I would play a clip of the T-Rex from Jurassic Park. Specifically the one where she's roaring, right? And it would be like, this is your voice. You need to use your voice. You need to be the T-Rex in this situation. And not the T-Rex always knows that there is no other predator, right? The T-Rex always is completely confident in every situation the T-Rex goes into. I sound like a crazy person right now. I recognize that. But truly, that has been every difficult conversation. Like, remember, be like the T-Rex. The T-Rex is not going in and killing people willy-nilly like that one dinosaur in Jurassic World that was like killing for sport. The T-Rex is coming in and saying what needs to be said with her full chest. And that's what I try to channel. This sounds out like people are listening like Jamie's got something wrong with her, but truly that helps me a lot.
No, thank you for sharing that. That metaphor lets you access your inner resourcefulness and confidence in a moment when those are really going to be called on. Something that works for me is to bring a mindful moment of pause so that I can come in contact with whatever I'm feeling, the anxiety in that moment. And by breathing and just sensing my connection to the earth, I can inhabit a place where I can respond rather than react. And if I don't do it, strong emotions might hijack me and I might, kind of kick into a fight or flight mode. And then I'm the other T-Rex. Nobody really wants that. So that emotional intelligence, the ability to recognize what's going on in you and allow it to be there without hijacking your higher level thinking and relating skills is also, for me, a really crucial element of executive presence,
I
which
absolutely
which in turn
agree.
gets us the seat at the table that everybody wants to get.
I mean, exactly. When you were saying that, I was thinking about the moment when we got a text message that there was a gunman on campus, and the police were running past my office window toward the building next to me. And I had a brief moment of like, this is how it all ends, and a brief moment of like panic, a little bit of panic. And then I told myself, they need you to be your best self right now. And that got me out of that panicked moment. I quickly locked my door. I had a closet. I grabbed my laptop, wheeled into the closet, shut that door, and just got to work. And I think sometimes if you take yourself out of the situation and think about, I need to be my best self right now in order to potentially save lives or to potentially save the reputation or whatever, that has been so helpful for me.
Yeah, I love that level of intentionality to say, wait a minute, this is going on and this is who I need to be in this moment.
Yeah.
And just framing it that way, that I'm intentionally operating from my highest, most resourceful place. And that's leaders who can develop that skill are immensely valuable to organizations. So when everyone else is losing their head and is hijacked by strong emotion, if you can hold that place of calm, centered groundedness, it actually ripples out into the organization, and other people then can begin to let go, and you can watch it happening, right? But here's another question. So while you're doing that work, and we have to do a lot of crisis work, and it's the nature of our roles, I find that I can swing into that mode and inhabit that role, but it catches up to me later on. So I'm wondering if you have any advice for listeners about, well, first of all, does that happen to you? And if you do, how do you deal with that sort of, okay, the initial incident's over, the adrenaline is down, and now I'm starting to really feel like, wow, we just went through something super intense.
Yeah. I think for like real life safety crises, it is that adrenaline rush. You're absolutely right. Like that adrenaline, you almost crash. Like you get home, and for me, it's I need to isolate. I need to get into a space by myself, sort of almost meditate on what just happened. How am I feeling about that? Checking in with myself, making sure that I understand that even if I did make a misstep, my intention was correct or in the right place. And I also would encourage you, if you're dealing with a situation where there was a life safety incident on your campus and they bring in like counselors to help employees take advantage
Yeah,
of
take
that.
advantage of it. Agree. Because even though the trauma didn't happen directly to us, like we weren't the victims of the stabbing or whatever, by participating in the response, we were exposed to it. And research shows that vicarious trauma is real. It affects first responders, emergency room personnel, journalists, and I'm going to say it affects public relations personnel too. So being aware of it and then using your resources, you talked about what works for you is to go off by yourself, calm yourself, reflect, talking to someone else to just say, hey, this thing happened and here's how I'm feeling. Talk to a loved one, a trained counselor. But the thing you don't want to do is to just soldier on and
Mm-mm.
suppress those feelings, bottle them up, suck it up, get over it, get back to work, get in the game, because that unprocessed trauma is going to eat away at you. It's going to undermine your ability to be at your very best. And I'm a big believer in we have to bring a trauma informed mindset to our work. Um, in fact, I've written recently about the importance of being aware that everybody we come in contact with is carrying something around
Yeah.
and developing skills of listening non judgmentally with an open heart and compassion, acknowledging whatever's coming up for that person, resisting the effort to fix it, and don't equivocate it to your experience, right? Like somebody comes in and they're like, hey, Jim, you look like kind of down today. Are you okay? Oh, man, we just had to put our dog down. We had her for 16 years when my kids were little. The Some of us might want to say, yeah, I did that last year too, and that really stinks. I don't think that's the way to respond to Jim. I think it's to say, wow, Jim, that sounds like really hard.
Yeah.
Are you doing okay? How you doing?
Yeah.
Just acknowledge the pain. You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
solve the problem. And whatever I experienced in losing my pet isn't exactly the same as what Jim's experiencing. So, no, I don't know how Jim feels. I can understand the impulse to maybe say, yeah, it feels like I'm supporting you because I say, I get that. I've been there too. But let's not do that.
Joe, this has been such a fantastic conversation. I think a lot of takeaways for people. But I wanted to ask you probably the question that is the one I'm most interested in hearing your answer to. And that is if you could rewrite the job description of a university chief communications officer, what would be the must have line in it?
I think it's strategic thinker and collaborator who is able to, probably wouldn't say this in the job description, but hold their ground with other executives, strong executive presence
I
and
love that.
strategic thinking. And I say that, Jamie, because more and more I'm realizing that the challenges that are facing higher ed, we are uniquely positioned as communication leaders to help our institutions solve. That
Hmm.
once upon a time, we were the folks that made it look pretty and made it sound good and sent it out, and everybody was happy with that. No more. We're in a really challenging moment in our industry. And everything that we know and can do is very valuable to our senior leaders as they work to navigate us through these really choppy seas.
Absolutely. I had an idea for how I would answer this question, but it shifted last night. I'm reading Brene Brown's new book, Strong Ground. And
Mm.
in it, she talks about one of the traits of the best presidents of the United States, and that is intellectual curiosity. And I would say putting a line in there about wanting to have a chief communications officer that has a lot of intellectual curiosity, who's willing to learn about other areas of the organization, willing to learn about other industries to see what can be applied to the university. I would add that line.
I love that. bringing a curiosity mindset as opposed to a judgment mindset opens the door to real learning. And it's such a powerful skill for leaders. So when somebody shows up and they've got a problem, they've got an issue, they're unhappy with something you did or didn't do, instead of pivoting to, I need to defend, what happens when you pivot to, tell me more?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that important for you? What's the biggest challenge here? And in working with team members, it can be profoundly uplifting and powerful for the leader to ask those kinds of questions and assist the individual looking inside herself for the answers. If we take a position of curiosity, we are really assuming that the other person is complete, resourceful, and creative, and that we're not here to fix them or change them. We are here to learn more. What makes them tick? What is it about this situation? The answers are knowable and problems are solvable, but not if we come in with preconceived notions and an unwillingness to open ourselves to different ways of thinking. So many of us live in patterns and we make assumptions, and we need to step outside it and say, is my reaction being governed by some kind of habitual pattern?
Mm.
What am I assuming here that just might not be true?
Mm-hmm. I love it. I love it. This is such
It's
a
liberating.
Absolutely. I mean, truly. This is such a great conversation. Where can people find you if they want more of your wisdom?
Well, LinkedIn's the best place to connect with me. Joseph A. Brennan, you'll find me pretty quickly. I love to connect there. I put a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, thought leadership, but I ask a lot of questions too, because I am curious and I want to hear what other people have to say.
I love that. And listeners, as you know, you can always find me on LinkedIn, Jaime Hunt, JaimeHunt, or on my website, solvehighered.com, or you can find my book at heartoverhypebook.com. Joe, we're going to have you back on the show because I could talk to you all day. Such great pieces of knowledge for listeners.
Oh, thanks, Jaime. I really enjoyed this. And it's such an honor to be on one of the most respected podcasts in higher education leadership. So thank you for what you're doing to bring interesting guests to all of us. I know I benefit and learn every time I tune in. So, yeah, and I would love to come back.
It's because of the wonderful guests like you that this show is such a hit. And as always, listeners, let's go bust some silos. Thanks for listening to Confessions of a Higher Ed CMO. This show is a proud member of the Enrollify network, home to Higher Ed's largest collection of podcasts. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow, so be sure to check out our other podcasts, webinars, video clips, blogs, and more. Visit enrollify.org and subscribe for all the latest details and contact drops directly to your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the digital workforce platform for higher ed. Learn more at element451.com.